I wanted to do just a quick addendum to the last video that I just put out on remote control switches for your layout. Now I have Pico switches, but the thought occurred to me that you may not have a switch like this. So if you don't have Pico turnouts, you may not have these little pins that are sticking up here. And if that's the case, you can just modify the wire on top to look like this. You'll have to be a little more accurate with the bends. In fact, you can see by the holes here, some of my original prototypes were just sliding on the inside here. The Pico turnout already has a hole here, but you could drill a hole on this sliding piece on the outside, and then this would just work. But you are going to have to be more accurate because you will have to go down through two holes, and there won't be as much forgiveness as there is when you can slide this way. Okay? Now, your switch may not be sprung like the Picos, but that doesn't mean that you still can't experiment with this. So, I ripped apart one of those free little plastic pens and stole the spring out of it. Or you can go to the hardware store and get a really nice spring. But you can see that I'm not utilizing the spring that's built in on my turnout. This is just easily trapping the points in the left and right position with the spring. And I know it doesn't look like it should work, but the distance from here to here is greater than the distance from here to here. In other words, this is a larger radius than this. And it actually does work. Let me sort of show you the geometry of it. This is our metal lever. This is where it comes through the wood and bends over, and then our wood dowel attaches here. Our spring is attached to the metal lever here. I'll explain how I did that in a minute. And the little wood screw that I put on the bottom is where the spring attaches here. So this distance here is much greater from A down to this pivot point than from C or B down to the pivot point, because at this attachment point it's swinging on this radius here, which is a much tighter turn. This is swinging a much larger radius naturally, but the pivot point is relaxing, so from C down here to the pivot point is a much less distance than from A down to the pivot point. So the spring will want to stay in this position at B or C. It will not want to stay at the high point of A. So you can see the spring. So you can see I attached the spring here with this little screw. And here I actually pinched on a piece of aluminum rivet. Now this all has to be done under the table. This you can do ahead of time, but you will have to apply the spring once you've bent your lever and you're underneath the layout. So this is going to be difficult, and you can't do it ahead of time. So what I decided to do was, here's an aluminum rivet, nice and soft, and I pulled the rivet off, and I came down on this metal bar, and using some pliers I slid this down over the metal and just mashed it with these lineman's pliers. And you can do that easily under the layout, and it will pinch, and it will have plenty of pressure to hold your spring. And by the way, when you're cutting this piano wire, use your lineman's pliers or some nippers. Do not use your nice cutters for the rail. Don't ask me how I know that. I'll see you later.